Hi, College and Career Success. This is your lecture for Chapter 1. So I am in the lessons area. I'm going to scroll down here to find this happens to be embedded in week 2 for a 16-week course. Week 2 folder. Here is just the snapshot of the week. Underneath there are materials. So we do have a link to the textbook. It'll take you directly to Chapter 1. So here it is, Chapter 1. If I wanted to, change based on the table of contents, I certainly can. This textbook is pretty easy to navigate. You can always expand or minimize this table of contents by doing that. And then you can also explore by expanding and collapsing the different arrows here. You can also search or just do a simple scroll to the bottom and hit next. So lots of easy ways to navigate. I like to, for this chapter at least, use these slides as my basis for kind of discussion. I know that number might look scary, but I try to go as quickly without rushing as possible. I do encourage you on your own to either just watch this video and that's how you take the information in, or maybe you need to go back and look at the textbook, look at the slides themselves, whatever is going to help you as you are gathering the information to understand how to proceed with the rest of the chapter. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to leave the slides right here as they are, but if you were at home on your own, you could always go in and download them so you can bring them up however way you would like. All right, so Chapter 1, Exploring College. So it's basically like an intro. So kind of some stuff that you're going to expect to see with a chapter called that, like why do we go to college? And what is the first year going to look like? What are some expectations? And then a little bit more about this book. This is just a check-in for yourself. So these are questions that you might kind of just think. Do I know the expectations? Do I have clear goals? Time management, how am I doing with that? And then do I feel comfortable working with certain people on campus? And so this is just an informal kind of look through the questions, answer them in your own mind type of thing to see where you are. The rest of this chapter is also going to be helping us recognize why college is so valuable beyond just getting a career after the fact, how there is an experience of transition during this first semester or first year of college, whether you're straight out of high school, whether you've taken a few years off, maybe you've taken 10 plus years off. So there is a transition time, how there is a different culture surrounding college, and then how we can use different resources to help us throughout our time in college. And so this is just a real quick little, they have it here too, kind of walking us through these 2 different student profiles and some information about different student experiences. So if you want to read about that and kind of think about what they have in common, what is different about them. Now, what you might have in common with them is you're starting kind of a new chapter for many of you, even if you're CCP. You want to think about why you're here because it's going to help with your motivation. It's going to kind of help you through the time when we're transitioning throughout your first few weeks, kind of getting adjusted to the college experience and how you can just understand what is expected of you as a new college student and some strategies overall. So why are you in college? What are the value? What are the rewards associated with a college degree? And then why this course in particular? Underneath there, this answers or helps you answer to get to why are you in college. So your initial response might be, well, I want a degree. Okay, so that's fine. Why are you in college? I want a degree. What do you want to do with that degree? Why that particular degree that you're going for? So, why are you going into education? Why are you going into business? Why do you want to help people do X, Y, Z? So you can kind of see how it builds. It's the 5 whys. So you take every level and you kind of just build on it. Why do I want to do this? Why do I feel this is important? So everyone's is going to look a little different, but it's definitely a great exercise to kind of walk through and think about that. So it has a chance for you to kind of think through that process. This is totally informal. It's just making you really hone in. I want a degree in education. Why do I want a degree in education? Well, I want to help kids learn. Why is that important to me? What do I want to do? So again, building and walking through, because it really does help motivate you if you can understand the why behind the reasons that you're making the choices that you're deciding upon. This is a little graph, and it does not say, it says it's 2008, so this is very outdated. We haven't updated our textbook for a little bit, so take that number with a grain of salt. But the trend stays the same. You can see that there's definitely a trend here. The more education you have, the more earning potential you have. Now, obviously, some degrees and some career programs, you can make as much as a master's degree with just your high school graduation. It just depends what field you're going into. So also keep that in mind. This also doesn't tell us what fields they looked at. We don't know if this is education, business, IT. But the underlying concept is the same, that in general, the more education you have, the more earning potential you have. Now, beyond the earning potential, going to college is beneficial for other reasons. It's greater job satisfaction. If you're in a field where you got your degree, you might have higher job satisfaction as well as job stability. There's also correlation between overall health and wellness. A lot of mental health is wrapped up in that. And we are setting the kind of expectations and standards for our own children, like the next generation. Even if you don't finish your degree, these things can all be true. Even if you take only a class or two, these are other things that come out of going to coursework in the higher education field. You earn more critical thinking skills, like you work on those. You learn leadership skills, work ethic. These are like what they call the 8 career readiness competencies. These are also sometimes called like transferable skills, because no matter what field you're in, for the most part, you're going to need all of these things. You're going to need to be able to communicate with people, whether it's written, verbally. You're going to have a solid work ethic, problem solve. That doesn't matter if you are in nursing or if you are over in business. You need a lot of these skills. So college helps you develop those skills, even if you don't end up getting a degree at the end. Something to think about is and this will come up in discussion prompts and things like that, but why will a degree be valuable to you now and in the future? So another way to check in and think about this. Now, why this course? Well, to be honest, you just have to take it if you want an honest answer. But every undergraduate program, 2 and 4 year institution has a course like this embedded in their first year experience, where it's like an orientation or a student success type class where it's showing students solid skills to help them move throughout their journey here to get a degree. So it's going to help you just learn expectations and navigate college and really develop the goals and the type of commitment needed to finish your plan. Talking about your first year of college, how will you adjust to it and what are some common experiences? So it's not just academic adjustment, although that's obviously a big piece of it. Transitioning from high school to college or taking a few years off and then jumping back into college. There is that academic, but there's also a cultural adjustment. There is its own college has its own language, not literally, but their own jargon. They have different words that you need to be familiar with. And then there's a kind of way that you carry yourself in a very academic environment. So there's a culture adjustment, emotional adjustment, lots of stress, lots of excitement. All of that runs through the gamut, the first couple of weeks in particular. Financial, big one. You're trying to figure out how to pay for college while also probably supporting yourself and maybe others. Intellectually, you're hopefully pushing yourself a little bit more, and socially, you're learning new people, new places. So lots of ways to adjust. And this is a little bit more example and detail on that. Of course, everything I'm saying right now is also found in the text. So as you go through, you'll see, here's your 5 whys. There's your earnings. So the PowerPoint really just kind of puts things in a little bit more condensed version for us. But I still encourage you, especially if there's something you want to know more about, or hey, I need a lot of help with this. I encourage you to go into the book and read more details on it. I like this quote, experiencing an intellectual aha moment is one of the most rewarding parts of college, right up there with moving across the graduation stage. My favorite thing when I was a student was when I would leave class with a headache, because I would always consider that like a positive headache. I really stretched my thinking, my critical reasoning out in class. It was such a great feeling. Here are some conversations about expectations and culture, what language and customs you need to know, what is your responsibility, how will you utilize the resources that the campus makes available, and what are some common challenges. So its own language, that means that college in itself is a cultural experience. You are going to have and see and read, use words like prerequisite, syllabi. Being familiar with those is really helpful, so you're not walking in day one and be like, I don't know anything about a registrar's office or a bursar or what DSS is. So knowing all of those different terms. A lot of colleges will have very similar language, but there's definitely going to be things that are specific to just the institution that you're attending. So they might be familiar, excuse me, but in the college setting, even, they may have a little bit of a different meaning. And so just knowing what's called kind of like the language of college is helpful. And so I want you to think about it. Have you encountered any new terms? And this class is a safe place in which to ask classmates or myself. If you're like, hey, I don't know what this is. Can you help me figure out where to go or who to ask about this? That is absolutely what I am here for. That is absolutely what your instructors are here for, especially those instructors like myself who are teaching students. We know this is like their first or second semester. So I often have students ask me questions that they think are silly, but honestly, I don't think there's a silly or dumb question, because if you have that question, it needs to be asked. So think about what the terms are that you've come across and what they might mean. Here are some other tips and customs. Building relationships with your professors is really important, especially those who are going to be in your content area. They might be the ones with network, lines of communication to other people in the field that you're going into. They could write letters of recommendation for you. They can help you with class registration, that type of thing. They can help you find internships. So you want to do that by participating in class, asking for extra help, just having conversations with them to really understand that these people are here to help you. And that's why instructors come to community colleges in particular, is because that relationship that can be forged with the students because of our smaller class size and things like that. And this is just like a little figure like, hey, all of these things that are going on and all these connections you're going to make. We also need to think about how high school and college is different from one another, and there's going to be an assignment associated with this as well. So this is a great reference for this. A lot of the time you might know this, kind of common sense with some things. However, there are some things that you may not realize. And this kind of goes up and it talks about like how grades are a little different, how learning is different. You are in college now. Learning is like 99.9% on your shoulders. Most instructors are not going to email you and say, hey, you're missing an assignment. Please get that in. They can't legally call your parents and talk to them. So there's a lot of shift in learning responsibility. The same thing with getting help. Oftentimes in high school, the help is there and very easy. They often maybe even come to you. In college, you have to kind of seek out that help. It's there. You just have to seek it out. Tests and exams might be a little different as well. There's also something called like the hidden curriculum. It's like kind of unwritten rules, such as, you should read the chapter that you're going to be lectured on before class even starts. So it's kind of like a hidden curriculum understanding. Instructors in many cases expect you to have read the chapter before walking into that classroom for that lecture. So, what are some unwritten rules about being in class, attending class, what you should do before or after? That's called the hidden curriculum. And sometimes you just don't know about it until you're in your courses itself. This is more talking about how learning is your responsibility. You really need to make sure, especially with an online class, and it's 100% your responsibility. I cannot be next to you making you play my videos or read the textbook. It is all on you. So really taking that accountability. In the first year in particular, the first couple weeks of every semester, I don't care if you've been going to school your entire life, the first couple weeks is a little draining because you're trying to manage a lot of emotions. You're overwhelmed, but you're also excited, but you're nervous, like all these different things. You're going to be meeting new people, learning new kind of routines. You might have moved or changed your work schedule, whatever it might be. Things are going to constantly be evolving. And then, of course, once you get into a routine, a few weeks later, a new semester starts. So the big thing with your first semester or two is just be flexible. Know that you're not the only one going through it, that there's support built in for you throughout the semester. Sometimes you may see that high school to college assignments or tests is not that different, but then you might take a class where like, whoa, everything is different. So just be aware that you might be okay in some classes and other classes may really go in a different direction than you expect. Oftentimes students often find that their GPA is lower than they anticipated. So you kind of have to give yourself some grace for that. And this is the big one I hear. I didn't have to study in high school. It just came naturally, or it came easier. I got A's, B's, or C's without studying. You might get away with that in college for a class here and there, but for the most part, you're going to have to really invest time and energy into your studying to see the results that you want to see. Here's a little bit more of like campus resources. I'm going to show you. Now, we did the main website just changed. So those of you, if you were possibly here over the summer, you saw this change like midsummer. On the Sark State homepage, if you go over to Info 4, and there is a tab for current students, this is, I don't want to say all, but most of our resources are kind of bound up in here. So you can see like there's a lot of academic support on our campus. We have the bookstore there, college store. If you struggle with computers, which hopefully you don't with an online class, but it happens where students are in an online class because it matches their schedule, but they still struggle with some computer issues. So we do have workshops. This is a great contact right here. We also have like Interfaith Campus. We have a digital library on campus, Math Learning Center. We have a lot of Science Learning Center. We have advising. There's a testing center. Trio, if you're a first generation college student or you have some financial components, they are a wonderful resource. I really encourage you looking into Trio. It's like a one-on-one assistance to get you to graduation. There's a lot more that goes into it, but great resource. There's lots of tutoring throughout campus. We have a writing center. I really hope that you check these out. These are all free, and I use that very loosely because you've already paid for it in your tuition, but they're free to use throughout. You can also come over to, your My SSC, and you can search, like I've already got testing center typed in there. You can search writing center, whatever works, whatever you're looking for. So definitely take advantage of all of these different resources here on campus. Some common challenges when students first start college. There's something called imposter syndrome. I still have this. Anytime I get on a really large committee at the college, I start feeling like an imposter. That means I question, am I intelligent enough to be here? Am I going to contribute what I need to contribute? Basically, do I belong? That is such a common feeling that they have a name, imposter syndrome. A lot of students feel like this when they get to college, like, can I do this? Am I smart enough for a degree? If you feel like that, it's absolutely normal. That's totally fine. We just want to work through that. Some people are scared about making mistakes, trying to do everything by themselves without asking for help. And a big one is a lot of times college students will let their health go because they're so focused on all their other things that they start running themselves into the ground. And then enjoy it. College is supposed to, at the end of the day, also be fun. I mean, I know it doesn't feel like that all the time, but you should still be having a good time learning about hopefully something you're passionate about, meeting new people. These are some other kind of resources, links that the textbook suggests. And then it starts to wrap up saying, like, how can this book help you? Well, basically, it's really supposed to be walking you through all the different components and pieces to help you have a successful college experience. Now, these are questions that were from the beginning of the slideshow, beginning of the chapter. And so after you've spent some time in the chapter or the slides or my video, have any of your responses to these changed? All right. So again, feel free, and I encourage you to spend time in chapter 1 where you think it would be most beneficial to you if you want to kind of look at differences between high school and college, or, the college jargon, and then definitely play around and visit the college website and see what is out there. This is the academic resources, but we also have career services. We have disability. We have a lot of help here on campus. All right. I'll see you next chapter.